The morning began like every other in the small, forgotten village, a poor place where most people struggled to get by with what little they had. The farmer, who had inherited a modest farm from his parents, was already on his knees on the dirt floor before the sun crept over the horizon. With his hands clasped in prayer, he pleaded, "Lord, I'm just asking for an answer. Why does everything feel so heavy? Show me what I need to do, because I can't do this alone." As the first rays of sunlight broke through the horizon, he headed to the fields. His calloused hands gripped the plow, his empty gaze fixed on the soil that sustained his existence. He lived alone ever since tragedy struck. The death of his wife and the abandonment by his children, who had gone off to seek a better life. His small farm provided just enough for him to survive, but the work was grueling, and he carried the heavy burden of a lonely life. That night, after another exhausting day, he heard a strange noise coming from the barn. Investigating, he found clear signs of theft. His baskets, once filled with fruits and grains, were nearly empty. 3 children had broken into his property and taken much of his harvest. With a heavy heart, the farmer worked twice as hard the next day to make up for what was stolen and decided to set a trap. He couldn't afford another loss. But life, as always, had other plans. The next night, instead of 3, 6 children came. The trap failed, and they took even more than before. Furious, the farmer grabbed an old torch and stormed into the darkness, determined to take back what was his. As he marched into the woods, fueled by anger and frustration, he stumbled upon something that made him freeze. In the moonlight lay a small baby deer, curled up next to the lifeless body of its mother. The farmer stood still, his heart pounding, torn between compassion for the helpless creature and the urgency of his mission. Before he could act, a sound sent shivers down his spine. A leopard was approaching swiftly. Without thinking, the farmer climbed the nearest tree, holding his breath as he watched the scene below. He braced himself for the worst, expecting the leopard to attack the defenseless baby deer. But what happened next was beyond his imagination. The leopard, moving gently, approached the baby deer, licked it, and left some fruits on the ground, food it had brought for the young animal. The farmer, wide-eyed with disbelief, watched as the leopard, seemingly hungry itself, cared for the baby deer as if it were its own. "God takes care of all his creatures," the farmer murmured, his voice trembling. "If he can help an orphaned baby deer, surely he has a plan for me too." Filled with newfound hope, the farmer sat under a tree, convinced that all he needed to do was wait. If a baby deer could receive care without effort, so could he. And so, he stayed there, waiting. The first day passed, then the second. Hunger gnawed at him, but he remained still, believing that something miraculous was about to happen. On the third day, weak and desperate, the farmer finally decided to return to the village. On his way back, he came across the village elder, a man of few words who seemed to carry the wisdom of generations. The farmer poured out his story, tears streaming down his face, his voice heavy with frustration. "God showed mercy to the baby deer, but he left me to starve. Why?" The elder, with a calm smile, placed a hand on the farmer's shoulder and said, "You saw God's plan, but you misread it. He didn't want you to be the baby deer. He wanted you to be the leopard." Sometimes in life, we misinterpret God's signs, confusing challenges for punishment or opportunities for impossible hurdles. But that doesn't mean we're alone or without direction. Maybe it's time to pause, reflect on your journey so far, and reconsider the purpose behind your struggles. The farmer sat in silence, letting the elder's words sink in. He finally understood. God hadn't abandoned him. He was showing him that his strength and hard work weren't punishments. They were a calling for something greater. The real message wasn't to wait to be cared for, but to become the one who cares, just as the leopard had done for the baby deer. If this video was meaningful to you, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. What did you learn from this story?